Hello, welcome back to my world of stuff. Now, the words Netflix original movie aren't usually cause for, I'll just move the camera down, aren't usually great cause for celebration because Netflix's original movies are usually films that are slightly lower budgeted and aren't really the sorts of films that you get on the multiplex circuit. They're not big enough, they're not good enough, but they're sort of interesting projects that deserve an outlet somewhere, but they're not big feature films. Sometimes they're just not very good. I'm thinking of, there was quite a lot released during the pandemic, and I think Netflix had a sort of a credo that they were going to release an original film every week, and I think they more or less do. They're not all Netflix original films. They're actually films bought in from other countries, and they just put the Netflix banner on them, and some of them are original Netflix commissions. And the film I'm talking about today is one such film. It's called Day Shift, and it stars Jamie Foxx and Dave Franco and Snoop Doggy Dogg, for all you hip rappers out there. And it's a vampire film. Now, we don't get vampire films very often. I think that vampires have lost their capacity to scare post-Twilight, which turned them into little twinkly, sparkly, romanticised figures. Vampires should be monsters. They should be ferocious, evil, blood-sucking demons. And they haven't been that way for quite a while. And I think that the horror genre has shifted away slightly from vampires to let them settle a bit so that they can come back and be truly scary again. Whether Day Shift does that is entirely a matter for you, but it's certainly one of the better vampire-related films I've seen in the last few years. I wouldn't say the vampires are scary particularly, but they're pretty ferocious and they're pretty deadly. Now, Day Shift is really, it's not exactly a horror film. It's a comedy film. It's a comedy action film with a sort of a horror backdrop to it. That might cause some people some problems, and I've seen and read some reviews that aren't particularly favourable because, yes, there are sort of tonal things that suggest it's a bit all over the place, but I don't think it's the sort of film that you really need to get stuck into in that great detail, because it's just a lot of fun. I watched it on the weekend. It's just dropped on Netflix, and it's an hour and 45, hour and 50 minutes. It's just good fun. It's funny. There's some great, fantastically choreographed action sequences. It's quite gory, but in a very comic strip sort of way. It's not gory in a sort of a exploitative sort of way. It's sort of vampires being sliced and diced and beheaded in a very comic sort of way, because it is a fairly comic film. It stars Jamie Foxx, who we know from things going back to Ray, when he won an Oscar back in 1995. That must seem a long time ago to him now. I remember him particularly from a great Tom Cruise film called Collateral a few years ago, where he played this cab driver who got caught up in the machinations of Tom Cruise, who played this sort of assassin type figure, as I recall. That's a great film. But Jamie Foxx is a really good actor, and he's very good in this, but it's not sort of a performance that will be one of the standouts in his career. He plays a chap called Bud Jablowski. Why can't they call people in American films things like John Jones or Dave Smith? It's always some weird, convoluted, four-syllable name that I have trouble pronouncing, so stop it, Netflix. Anyway, he plays Bud, who appears to be a pool cleaner working in bright and sunny Los Angeles. He wears these very garish Hawaiian shirts, and he goes about his business cleaning pools of the rich and presumably the famous. He's also, though, secretly a vampire hunter, and he spends his days seeking out vampires and covens of vampires who are hiding away from the night on the day shift, because he works during the day. And he defangs vampires because the vampires of older vampires, elders they're called, are worth quite a lot of money on the black market. So he is making a bit of money on the side by slaying these vampires quite graphically and making a bit of extra cash. The film starts off with a really good adrenalized action sequence where he goes into this house where this little old lady appears to be in residence, and then she morphs into something much less charming, this sort of body-twisting, grotesque, very vicious vampire creature, which he eventually kills in a very creative way. The story progresses. His ex-wife and his young daughter are about to move to Florida. He needs to get some cash very quickly. So he goes to the vampire hunting unit or vampire hunting authority, which he used to work for, but he's fallen foul of them because he doesn't stick to their code of ethics in vampire hunting. So he's a bit of a rogue agent now. He goes to them looking for help because he needs to get cash quickly. They're not particularly happy to let him go rogue on his own, so they send this sort of desk jockey called Seth, played by Dave Franco, to follow him in his activities to see if there are any further code violations. However, it doesn't look as if Seth has ever stepped out behind the desk before because he's never been in a dangerous situation. And when he does, he wets himself. And he gets in a bit of a stew. It's this nice sort of buddy sort of thing where these two mismatched characters are forced together. And I wouldn't say that they sort of learn to accept one another, but they sort of eventually end up sort of jogging along together in very unexpected ways. So they set about hunting vampires, but what our hero, Bud, doesn't realise is that the vampire he killed at the very beginning of the film is somebody quite important to a vampire with the terrifying name of Audrey, who then sets out on a mission of revenge to kill him and his family. And it goes into that territory where his family are in danger. He has to rescue them. It involves encounters with other vampire hunters and hordes of other vampires. And it just rattles along. It's rollickingly good fun. I really had a good time with it. It's there's nothing new in terms of the story. It's very straightforward, vampire killing. But it's done with a lot of fun, a lot of wit. It's not to be taken seriously. Some of the reviews I've seen are sort of looking at it as a piece of cinema and how certain motivations and certain things. I don't think about that. Just think about the fact you're watching this guy, cutting the heads off vampires and gouts of blood pumping out. It's just great fun. As I say, it's not scary because it isn't that sort of film. It's all set in the bright daylight, apart from sort of scenes towards the end in this vampire's lair. But it's a very bright and breezy, fun film. Dave Franco is good value as this wimpy sidekick. Snoop Doggy Dogg, the classic rapper, down with the kids. He plays this super cool vampire hunter called Big John Elliott, who appears at the beginning of the film and towards the end. And to be fair, I'm not a fan of rap music. I'm not a fan of Snoop Doggy Dogg, but he is very cool. He just oozes cool. It's just a good, fun film. It's not one. It's not going to be on the top 10 of anybody's films of the year list. Not just because it's a Netflix original movie, because it's not that sort of film. It's just meant for you to sit down and watch it with a couple of beers and just have a good time with it. It's just good fun. It flies by. The action is well choreographed. The acting is as good as it needs to be, and it's just a good old-fashioned action comedy, the sort that we don't get very often. So kudos to Netflix for putting this one before the cameras and getting it up on screen. I think it cost about 100 million, so it's not a cheap film. And apparently it's gone straight to the #1 of the Netflix charts this week. So it would be nice to get a sequel. I think Netflix have put out a few films recently. I think we had the Grey Man, which was Netflix, wasn't it? It might have been Amazon, I'm not sure. Anyway, the streamers do put up these films which have franchise potential. And certainly The Grey Man, and I think this one. I'd like to see more of these characters in these situations. Particularly this, because there's a lot of fun potential here, especially with certain character developments to happen with Seth later on in the film, which change the dynamic between the two, should we say. So that's Day Shift, which I thought was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. And I'm going to give it a big chunky World of Stuff 8 out of 10. It's not a brilliant film. It's not a fantastic film. But for what it is, it deserves an 8. It's just good fun. If you've watched Day Shift on Netflix now, why not leave a comment down below and let me know what you thought of it. Did you think it was bloody awful? Or will you thank me for recommending it? I'm sorry. Or did you enjoy it and have a good time with it? Let me know. Leave a comment down below. Don't forget also, give the old thumbs up, subscribe. Press that subscribe button. Since my last video, I've now gone up to 211 subscribers. Mwah, the world will be mine. Again, thank you to all the newbies who come on board. Very nice to have you here. But leave a comment. Say hello. Anyway, thanks for watching. I will see you soon with some more stuff. And until I do, I sport it now. Anyway, keep taking this stuff.